Hi, my name is Isabella Johnston, and I am the host of the Intern Whisperer podcast, brought to you by Employers for Change, which is also my company. We want to welcome Adam Lewis Walker, who is the founder and CEO of Amplify Your Mission. Adam's accomplishments have garnered recognition from prestigious platforms such as the Huffington Post and ESPN. Additionally, he has had the privilege of delivering speeches at renowned venues like the Hollywood Roosevelt, which is famously known as the original home of the Oscars. Yay! As well as the esteemed U.S. Air Force and Space Force Academy, all places that I love. Adam's contributions to the new media realm have earned him the distinguishing title of Icon of Influence, not once, but twice. And with over a decade of experience as a leadership and new media speaker, he has delivered TEDx talks, published best-selling books, and hosted popular podcasts on how to step up, speak up, and achieve your mission. So welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks for having me. It's good to
Oh,
be here.
it's
So
so
yeah, it's always weird sitting back and listening to that. It's like you're speaking about someone else, but no, it sounds good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I tell you, we've known each other for a little while, and we met through Podfest, and I would come to your booth and I would, visit with you. But I also had gone to a couple of your introductions because we both share something, which is TEDx and TED Talks. So I always like going there, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show because people ask me all the time, since I was an organizer, how to do a TED Talk. How can they get accepted? And I go, well, I'll give them some tips, but you're the guru, you're the expert. So I'm so thrilled to have you on the show.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, it's good. It's always better to have interviews with people you've met in person and got some kind of background with. Makes for a better interview for sure.
Yeah. Okay. You got an accent. Where are you from?
England originally, and I'm up in the Great Lakes now, northern Michigan. You can kind of just about see especially from the roof of my house, you can see Lake Huron, and the other side of the lake is Canada. So up in the wilderness, small town. So perfect for podcasting because you can be anywhere. So that's obviously part of my journey and why I do a lot of podcasting. So.
Oh, so cool. Well, I kick off the show with tell us about yourself using only 5 words. Could be past, present, future, whatever those 5 words are. And I'm going to take some notes while you're talking too.
Relentless. I'll
Uh-huh.
start with the first one. That springs to mind. Um, you could probably dig into this. I'd love to say Olympian, but not Olympian.
I
That,
love that. I love that. I think so. And I think you have to have an Olympian mindset to be relentless.
yeah, I like that. Probably the same thing. Kaizen.
What was that word?
Kaizen. I was going to say Kaizen path, but that's 2 words. I mean, it's very similar to the other one. Pole vault.
Wait, what's this word also?
Pole vault.
How do I spell this word?
Pole. Polevault. Pole vault.
Okay, you're giving me words I don't even know. So this is great.
So we've got sons or dad. you called, but you said that one would be in there. Is
Yeah, we
last
could
one?
say family though,
Yeah.
leader.
That's a good one. Okay, get that in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think you got your 5.
Did I?
I missed
I was
I
at
missed
4.
the other one because between Olympian and pole vault, I'm going, I don't know this word. So what was your third word? Because it was a word that I did not know. Kaiser, you said?
Kaizen. So I think I had 4 because I didn't have Olympian because I'm not an Olympian, unfortunately. But that
Oh,
was
okay, we're gonna
so I
take
had
that
to
one
pop
out
up.
then.
So the last one, eh, legacy or author or something like that. Yeah,
Hmm. That's all
legacies.
good. Yeah, legacy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with that.
yeah. Okay.
So how do I spell Kaizen also?
I believe it is Kaizen.
Okay, so you're gonna give us new vocabulary words too. So relentless. Why relentless?
I would probably say it as I definitely don't think there's well, I think I in the same way as I think we're all special, there's nothing special. It depends on your perspective. There's nothing special about me. I feel like I am quite relentless in a sustainable way. Like, and I just surprises me how much of you can get out of life if you just do what you said you're going to do. You know, stick to things you said, and just set goals and go after them if they're right for you, and just yeah. So I think that's the one thing I've got up my sleeve, and it comes from the, you know, that Olympic mindset of trying to get to the Olympics, not getting to the Olympics. I definitely wouldn't be doing or have done quite so much in this kind of avenue if I'd have done a little bit better at the old Olympics game. But
Did you pursue that? Was that something that you wanted to do? Were you like,
oh yeah, I was obsessed with the Olympics. That was took me up to I was like 28 years old, and then
wow,
I had a career-ending injury, so I was kind of left high and dry at the kind of peak of my athletics career, without that kind of right. Maybe I should retire from this, or I'm getting a bit old. It was kind of the opposite. I was just starting to get, in my mind, just starting to get a bit good, and so it was yeah. So that was kind of creating a big hole, loss of identity, and that's ultimately what led me to sitting here now in this basement speaking to you.
got it. So what was the sport you were pursuing as
Pole vault. So that was the other word.
oh,
I was a pole vaulter for the first 28 years of my life. Wow. Maybe like 20 years, because I wasn't pole vaulting from zero. But I started reasonably young, probably about, yeah, probably about 10, 8 or 10, something like that. Yeah.
that's a really hard sport because I watch them and they're like running like it's a spear and they have to get it in the exact right spot.
Yeah.
Then they have to fling their body over something. I mean, incredibly hard.
Yeah. I think the crazy thing is, I like to think of it like this. If you do it right, and in theory, if you've got that kind of I wouldn't say fearless mindset, but you just got to have full faith that you're gonna stick the pole in the right spot. It's the takeoff is actually, the run up and jump is the same or very similar to a long jump. So you
Yeah.
imagine doing a full sprint with that kind of jump, and then on the end of a pole, that's what the top guys basically, and girls, do. Is that's, you know, and but it's very hard to do because you're carrying a pole, and there's things like not dying that pop into your mind,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like being a bit more control. But that's what you're trying to do, get that maximum takeoff speed and jump on the end of a pole ultimately.
So how high have you gone?
I like to about almost 3 doors worth, 2.5 doors plus. So that's because everyone's like, how? Because it doesn't sound that high when you say like almost 5 meters. Because you think of it in long jump, 5 meters isn't very far, but when you put it up, like the average door is about just over 2 meters. So you think like, you know, 2.5 doors plus, I could jump over that reasonably easily. And then the top guys, or there's uh, reasonably small club of the 6 meter club, which is probably like probably about 10 people now in history. So that's like 3 doors. But obviously,
Five
when you're
meters.
going up,
I just
yeah,
looked it up. 5 meters for us Americans. That is 16 feet. That is pretty darn high because when what a standard door is like what 8 feet, and maybe it's not 8 feet.
standard door, I think 6'6".
Six
I don't know
foot.
why I know these stats. It's because I was obsessed with Michael Jordan growing up. He's 6'6". The door's 6'6", 2 meters 5. I know, just know random stats like this. But yeah, I never, and just in case any of the pole vaulters are listening here, because I get stick for details, I never got 5 meters. Because again, that's another barrier. I never got 5 meters. I believe I had 5 meters in, but I was a little bit below that. My brother got over 5 meters. He had the Irish record for a little bit. But yeah, that's what I was kind of going after as well, until I wasn't able to.
Wow, that's substantial. I mean, I did not know how tall that was. That's a very, very high area. And 10 years old doing that, like that's when
Yeah, it
you're
must have been about that. Yeah, it was just leisurely, because my brother started, so that's what got me sucked into it. And also, it was um, there was a PE teacher at his school and then my school, who had a theory about grabbing little gymnastic type people
Mhm.
and giving them a go at pole vault. And he did very well. He broke all the town sports records, and then I came in behind him about 2 years behind him and broke all his town sport records. So that was fun. But he'd be happy to hear this. He was a better pole vaulter than me. I don't mind that. I was better at basketball. But yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, that is so interesting. So you could play two truths and a dare with that one for sure. Go.
But I was, and I was, the thing that was interesting, I was thinking about this last night randomly. I was the worst, well, one of the worst pole vaulters in our group. So it's interesting when you get with the right group, because my training group had the British record holder, and at some stage the Irish record holder, who's my brother, and then we had probably the Scottish record holder in there as well. We had, because he was training and is from our hometown, it was like sucked in all the good pole vaulters from the country to train there, and it just happened so we could kind of get on his coattails, and that's why I was able to train and have a really good coach. And as I say, in that environment, you're like the worst pole vaulter there, but you're still good. So it's interesting when you get in them circles. It's like either being the big fish in a little pond or being like ultimately the dumbest person in the room.
Wow. That is amazing. Oh, wow. So I always find it interesting when people have those big audacious dreams. It's incredible. And they inspire me. So I'm inspired for sure. Relentless. So let's go back to that as your first word. Why relentless? Because now I understand a little bit more.
Well, okay, let's tie it all in then. So, in that sense, as I say, I definitely don't think I'm the most physically gifted athlete. As a PE teacher and teacher, I've seen lots of very physically gifted athletes and people who don't have that Olympic mindset or that to get the most out of themselves. Um, and then I think that's what Olympians have. They have that they're very physically gifted, but then they've got the mindset, and that's how you get there. And I feel like I got better. I had the mindset. I kept going. For example, my last ever competition, August 8th, 2008, it was Olympic year. I got to the UK Challenge final in Windsor, Slough and Eton, which was on paper the top 10 based on performances and points you built up. I was probably officially maybe 11th in the country. I got to the finals though, and then on that day it's who wants it the most. And because it was English summertime, obviously it was horizontal rain, disgusting conditions, and it was rough. And so that affects everyone's ability. So the best vaulters on paper or in a vacuum are not the best vaulters on that day because it's not very nice conditions. And people start thinking about things like self-preservation and this isn't worth it. And other people like me at the time start thinking, oh, this is like life. This is the reality. It's who wants it the most. And I wanted it a lot. So and there was prize money involved, which there never is for athletics in England. It's an amateur sport, pretty much semi-pro.
Really?
And then, yeah, and then so the bar went higher, and I was in fourth position. It's elimination, obviously, as the bar goes higher. A lot of the vaulters couldn't get off the ground because it was like literally puddles on the floor and slippery, and your pole was soaked, and so it was hard to grip. And when you landed on the bed, it was like landing in a swimming pool, so you were drenched through. And then, yeah, so I need one more height to basically get a medal, potential Olympic qualification. And that's where I slipped on takeoff and dislocated my left knee, tore my ACL and ripped all the meniscus cartilage off the bone ends. And that was the last time I pole vaulted, surprisingly. So
Wow.
that was it. So I kind of maybe got the balance a little bit wrong there in terms of I wasn't thinking about self-preservation. I actually it didn't feel safe. It didn't feel right, and I still went for it. So that's that.
I would say that had to be a really valuable life lesson for sure. Because if something doesn't feel right, then don't do it, no matter what.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, and I just lost perspective because I'd always come back from injuries, and there's some things you can't come back from, and that you only get one knee. And the next 2 years were a series of operations, prehab, rehab, crutches, operations for about 2 years, 3 operations. The surgeon said it was like my cartilage in my knee was trying to like sew wet spaghetti together. So it didn't really work. And that was the big issue. The ACL, they replaced that with a bit of my hamstring, but it was the cartilage, which was the big issue. It's just the impact. I could do pretty much most things eventually. It just couldn't pole vault because it was that impact of takeoff and just not really any cartilage in the left knee. So.
I imagine you would have been a fantastic swimmer, though. Much
Wow,
easier on your body.
the 2 years afterwards, I actually hated the swimming pool because I was in it every day, but not for swimming, doing all the rehab stuff, like
Right.
jumping around and moving around. But I'm a bit short for swimming. I got a long torso. My wife's a very good swimmer, but yeah, I got fed up with swimming after that. But no, I do like swimming. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's different for you for sure. So
Mhm.
Kaizen, Kaizen, and I looked it up while you were talking, but tell
Kaizen.
us, what does that word mean and why this word as a way to define you?
Yeah, I'm surprised it popped in there. I haven't thought about that for a while, but it's I mean you looked at the definition. To my memory, it is the pursuit of continual improvement. It's like
You are
the
exactly
way
right.
of there you go, way of the samurai type vibe. And I just like it. I just like that whole mindset. Um yeah, never done. It's just is what it is. You know?
Have done it. Honestly, I think it says it's a Japanese term saying exactly what you said, changing for the better or continuous improvement. And anybody that was pursuing the Olympics and ended up having to do a quick pivot because of an injury, you're always this is I don't know you well, but this is what I absolutely do know about you. I would use continuous improvement exactly as a word to describe you, as two words. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because every time I've gone to any of your events that are at Podfest, and that's where I get to engage with you, because we're all together at that. I would say that is the key thing that you really reinforce to anybody that attends those events. And I would say that's what's on your website too. Being a
Awesome.
TEDx speaker is about continuous improvement to be the best who we are, because it's a
Yeah.
big honor, right?
Yeah, and I just say it is just it's a tool, it's a stepping stone. It's like it doesn't make you an awesome person. It's one thing. If you want to go in that direction, it's yeah, it's like the gold medal of speaking.
It
But
is.
that's
It's the
that's how I
Olympics.
look at it. I
Yeah.
found something else as well linked to this. It just popped. There's a world championship of public speaking. I found this out a few months ago, so I bought a ticket to it. And then I found out because I thought I'll reverse engineer it. How do you get into that? And so then I found out, oh, you have to be in Toastmasters. And so then I attended my first Toastmasters just the start of the year. And I think but then you have to do loads of rounds. So I'm probably just going to go watch it this year. But I'm like, oh, this sounds cool. And it's the 100-year anniversary of Toastmasters in Anaheim, California, where it began apparently. So I'm diving into that. So I have a look, and it's 6-minute talks is their competition format. So I thought
Mhm.
that's a bit like the Olympics. So I was interested in that. So
Yeah. I have had a number of friends that have gone through that program also, to be an excellent speaker, and it's rigorous, that is for sure.
yeah,
Um, Another one is pachakacha, which is another Japanese word, and that's to do what we do at Podfest, where you have 20 slides, 15 seconds per slide, and somebody else is moving the deck for you, the PowerPoint deck. And you have to be able to tell a story with just images.
yeah. That's the first time I spoke at Podfest was one of them, and
I did one of those too. It's
yeah. It's yeah. You have to keep a look because if you turn around or if you like get sidetracked, the slides have moved on, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
You
good.
have to
It's good for
really
keeping pace. Yeah.
yeah. And what you're describing with Toastmasters is I think the same principle. You said 6-minute talk.
It's a 6-minute talk. I don't think there's. Hope there's not slides involved. I
No,
don't think, but I think it's
no,
a
there's
six
not.
minutes is their format. But I think that you have to do like 6 rounds. You do like local, regional, and yeah. Because I just missed out. I think because I had my first meeting, and again the nearest a few barriers here that people think it's too the nearest ones to me. This show how remote I am. The nearest ones to me, I've got either 2 hours straight up to Canada is the nearest Toastmasters to me, or 2.25, 2.5 hours across to Traverse City, and theirs is at 7:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning. So I turned up to one. I left at about 5 a.m. Turned up to one, and they had the speaking competition was the next week. They mentioned, oh, it's next week. They didn't have enough speakers, so I said I'll do one. And then they said, well, you're not a member yet. I said, well, I'll be a member now today then. And they said, oh, you have to have done six
Talk.
qualifying talks prior or something like that. I was like, can we do them online? Can I get them done in a week? Because I was just like, and that's my only experience so far. It was too much. Computer says no, because I was like, I can do this, but and they said, and they wanted me, and they said you could do it, you can compete, but if you got through, you wouldn't be able to go through because you don't. So I was like, oh,
You
that's
haven't met all the requirements.
yeah, and I was like, oh, what's the point of competing then? If you let me compete, let me compete. But no, I said, I'll leave it then till I'm allowed to compete.
Yeah, yeah. Follow the rules, just like the Olympics, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can't. So I was just like, I didn't know the rules, so I was like, let me know if. But that was the thing. But they said we want we need speakers. We want you to speak. So I said, okay. It's almost like they're helping them out. And then they said, but you can't go through if you do it. And I was like, well.
Mm. Got it. Yeah. That's impressive. Okay, so family. Family, you're a father, you're a son, you're a husband, all of these things. So why family?
uh, it's even more front of mind being in a different country. Again, when I look at it, doesn't quite make sense, or I didn't think it through properly. Maybe I maybe took for granted how close I am to my parents and my family, because I grew up with them 5 minutes away from me. Well, I grew up with them, but then when I was living five. They've always been very close. Um, and then I moved to America.
Not so
So then
close.
they're not so close. So it's and then with the pandemic, I've always been jumping back and forwards, and it doesn't seem very far, and it really isn't if you can be mobile. But then with the pandemic, it was like, oh, that was brutal, and it felt a long way away. And everything I do, I don't think in terms of finances. I think in terms of plane tickets,
Mhm.
travel tokens. That's it's travel and experiences and popping back there. And I know they won't listen to this, or they won't hear this in time. For example, my recent thing I'm very excited about is for Mother's Day this year. I'm turning up on my mum's doorstep back in England. She doesn't know, surprise. So I'm hitting the American Mother's Day, because the English one is a different date. It's actually coming up in this weekend. As
Oh, the March.
yeah. So I'm like, I've been very emphasizing. They might be onto me. I better stop doing it. Saying I'm not celebrating the UK one. I'm in America. I'm going to celebrate the US one. So I'm turning up on the US one. So that
That's
should
in
be fun.
May.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, if they had no warning, they would know. But the show will air, just so you know, in April 20th.
Yeah.
So
They
if
won't.
you listen to it.
Or I'll make sure they don't listen to it. Or
Oh,
maybe they do. That give them a little bit of warning, but they won't
yeah.
listen.
Yeah. Well,
You know what
maybe.
it's like with close friends and family. They never know what you're up to, or you
No,
know.
that's so true. My
Yeah,
brother will text me and he'll say, "Hey, what's going on with you?" And I go, "You can pick up the phone. You could call me. You could come and take me to lunch. Like we could do that."
yeah.
But they really don't know what's going on.
No.
Yeah. Even if you call like once a week, I don't know if you call your family that's overseas,
Yeah.
regularly, but
I speak to my parents pretty much every day, but my and on top of that, without going into too much details, my dad's had some. He goes to the gym every day, or he did. He had some out of the blue kind of health issues in the last 6 months, to the level that I dropped everything in September, and was back there for a full month by myself, without my family here. Longest I've been away from my actual family here, but it needed to be done. And so I'm very grateful for the sort of career where I can okay it with the boss, which is me, that I can down tools, and I maintained with clients that needed to be done, but I didn't. Yeah, I basically dropped everything and went over there to be a chauffeur for my mum.
that's cool. That is cool. So your last word was legacy. What is it? Why legacy?
Hmm. It all links to, I don't think anyone's going to wish they'd worked harder when in terms of like their job or their career, when they're on that deathbed. I'm very aware of mortality. I felt a big sense of relief when I got my book out. So this one here, I got this when that came out. That was purely for legacy. It wasn't like thinking or business stuff, or I was writing it as if it was for my sons, because it was in case something happened to me, and it says that in the right at the front. So I think that's really important. And I mean, a bonus of podcasting. It's not front of mind, but if anything did ever happen to me, they got, wow, they must have. There'd be just hundreds and hundreds of hours of audio and advice and stuff they could draw on for years to come. So I think that stuff's important. I think not everyone, a lot of people assume they're going to get a long run at this, and no one knows. So I think I'm very aware of mortality. I think it's important to be like
Oh,
that.
yeah. We take every day for granted instead of realizing how that's a day, right? So what is Awaken Your Alpha about? What is your book about?
So it's I mean, the tagline is, and again, this is not version 2, the new kind of subtitle was 31 actions to step up, master your identity, and lead a life of impact. It's broken into 3 sections: awareness, action, and ascension. So the alpha stuff, and I started my TED talk with this, that usually puts off all females initially, and then, but again, that society has kind of adjusted what we think of the alpha. So the alpha, the definition in the dictionary, obviously, is use the alpha female elephant from the animal kingdom. There's no real sense of male or female. It's to achieve dominance in a dominance hierarchy in the animal kingdom, and then from the solar system, it's Alpha Centauri, which is star that shines the brightest. So that is what my basis, what I approach it from, and it's to achieve the highest rank in areas of your life that are important to you, and to shine as bright as you can with your time here, like we've just been touching on. And that's not to put others in your shadow, but to illuminate. So that's kind of awaken your alpha. And usually when people hear that, they're like, oh, that's not quite what I thought. I was thinking more knuckle dragging, muscle head male kind of vibe.
Yeah, yeah. So you said focuses on awareness, and what were the other 2 points?
Awareness, action, and ascension. So that personal awareness of where you are and the realities and what you want to do, not what society wants you to do, or your parents, or what's cool for that village or area you grew up in. So for me, for example, the a big pull was to get sucked into London to high paying jobs, and money rich, time poor type situations where you earn a lot, but you're spending all your money on living in and near London, and at that stage, transport, because there was not really remote work then. And then so I knew I didn't want that. I knew for a fact that was like the opposite. And sometimes if you're not clear on aware on what you do want, sometimes being clear on what you don't want helps point you in the right direction, because you can kind of point the other way. And then action. So that awareness is one thing, but if you don't do anything about it, it's worse.
Yeah.
Because you kind of know what to do, and you know what you want to do, and then you're ultimately, if you don't do anything about it, you're just going to get
Yeah, you're
resentful
paralyzed.
and just
Nothing
complain a
happens.
lot. Yeah, so that actions, and you don't need to know the details. Just as I say, as long as you're pointing in the right direction. If you've got a vague kind of, I call it the Mount Olympus. If you've got a vague idea of, okay, that's the peak. I don't know the path, but I'm going to make sure every step I take, every decision moves me one step closer to that, not away. And that helps you with decisions as well. So that comes to actions. And then ultimately, if you keep staying on it, like the relentless nature, you will get there. You will rise up, you will get better. And I'd take 1% better every day over these big sort of 20%, and then nothing for a month or two.
Right.
And then, because that's cool when you get a big bump, as it were. But then it's being stagnant and not improving is no fun. And loss of momentum is huge. And I've been, I think when you've got momentum, sometimes you take that for granted. And then when you lose it, you really notice, oh, I had momentum then, and it's a lot harder to get going again and kind of get the steam train moving.
Mm. That's good stuff. Now let's talk about where you went to school and how you decided to launch this business. Because when I introduced you, I went, "Wow, you're a great person of influence." Because whatever all of these amazing things that you've done, I mean, to be somebody that was part of the Space Force Academy, you were speaking at the Hollywood Roosevelt. Did not know that was the name of the hotel or wherever the venue is for the Oscars. But then also, just just the things that you've been recognized for is this of an icon of influence. I go, I want to do those. So like you inspire me for sure. And I'm wanting to know, like, how did you get from, we'll go from pole vaulting to where you are now?
So while I was sitting there with a coconut of a knee, it absolutely swelled up, and it could have been way worse because I was flying to California, I think, the next day, and the emergency room said, "Oh yeah, you're good to go." And later, doctors told me that was a real bad idea because as your knees swelling up, then I was on like a 10-hour flight, and it just swelled up. My whole leg went like a block of wood. Really dangerous. Anyway, while I was in California at the other end, um, I then booked in to go to my first ever kind of conference for anything outside, like off my own back, outside of sports and stuff like that. It was actually a businessy type thing in New York, randomly. And that was kind of, I wouldn't have done that for sure if I hadn't have been injured, because I was like, well, I'm going to be out of the game at that stage. I still didn't realize it was permanent. I didn't accept that for a while. But I knew I was going to be out of the game for a while. So yeah, that was the first step. And then there was, I think, speaking at that event randomly at the same time was Lewis Howes, School of Greatness.
Mhm.
He was talking about LinkedIn, and he was an ex-athlete, similar sort of thing. I think he might have ruined his knee actually doing American football or arena football. So I got on well with him. And then, yeah, just you meet a lot of people at live events and things come from that. And so that was in 2010 when my son was born. I launched the UK Youth Conditioning Association because there was nothing like that. I say here in England at the time, you have the International Youth Conditioning Association, which is an American thing. I went to some of their conferences. So yeah, I was heavily into strength and conditioning and youth performance development, and I had my own youth strength and conditioning business called Sports Speed Academy. Get fast, win more. I like that tagline, and that was fun. And I actually stopped that, I think probably near the about 2 years in, after the multiple operations and some coaches letting me down, or just obviously not the same sort of standard. It's not their business, and it was just too much stress at the time because I was trying to get my leg better and stuff and get better, and I didn't want um, the levels I'd set to drop. It was really doing well, and I could see I wasn't going to be able to give so much time to it, and I could see the people who were coaching and working with me, um, they just had other priorities, which is fair enough. It wasn't their business. So before it kind of trailed off, I just cut it. So interesting.
Yeah. So what got you into the TED Talks, TEDx business?
Yeah.
How did you transition there? And you've got this amazing business. And again, I've heard you speak before, and I know you're legit. You're the real deal. So
Oh,
it's
appreciate it.
important. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, good point. So in 2013, um, I always wanted I always wanted to write books, and I wrote a chapter in a book, um, and then I went out to America to kind of the awards ceremony, or where everyone was getting together, and I didn't quite get what the mix of the people in the book. It was one of them, it's like a 35-year-old PE teacher from England, a 60-year-old dentist from Nebraska. I couldn't see why this group of people were in the book. And then when I physically got there and met these different people from all walks of life and different locations, and that's when the penny dropped. It was the mindset and the conversations we were having. I was like, oh, I totally get it now. And that's when I had the idea for a book, Ultimately Awaken Your Alpha. That's what it became to be. But I also realized I couldn't just sit around researching a book for 4 years. So almost secondary, I had the idea for a podcast. It was around that time. And also I knew our goal was to move to America, where I am now, middle of nowhere. So the podcasting thing really fitted in as well, because I knew where I was moving to, you wouldn't be able to get a job as a teacher. And I was already kind of part-time anyway. I was teaching in colleges 3 days a week and doing the entrepreneur thing 2 days a week. And that was a tough time because I when it penny dropped for me, I was an amateur in both. I was a part-time teacher, I was a part-time entrepreneur, going up against full-timers in both fields, and I didn't like it because how can you compete? And so that was when I finally pulled the plug on that. That was good, because then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I can go full-time on this. Wouldn't recommend it. In some scenarios I would, but everyone around me, including I think business coach mentor, advised against it. But you got to do what you got to do, and I knew I had to go all in. So I did that and launched the podcast. I think the Monday after quitting, and yeah, went from there. And then that was kind of where the idea for Awaken Your Alpha came. Then I moved across. We set the deadline, moved across before my son started school. So we kind of set that deadline as vague as that. We got like about 5 years. And then we landed and he started school the next week. So we just made it. And then I did my TED talk here within the first year. And then I turned that TEDx, which was kind of the three main things: awareness, action, ascension, is what helped me kind of clarify what the Awaken Your Alpha was. And then I turned that into the best-selling book. And my favorite bit about this new cover is Robert Greene is my favorite author. Oh, where is it? Over there. He liked the book. He's in it, and he kind of, I want to put his name bigger so people even maybe think, oh, did Robert Greene write a new book? But no, I put my name down the bottom. But he said it's entertaining, thought-provoking, a great book. And he's kind of like my role model for when it comes to writing, because he's a full-timer. I think I do a few things. He just writes all day, every day. He's a machine. So,
Oh, don't you love those people? Oh,
yes. They go all in. And yeah, like if you get him for an interview, you literally have to, you're aware that you're getting in the way of his writing. Like that's not his thing. He does it on occasion because obviously it helps the books, but yeah, he's a writer for sure.
Hmm. So where can people buy your book? Is it on Amazon or?
Yep. Amazon, all the main places. Yeah, and look at the reviews. It's got good reviews. I think sometimes, especially because I do other things, people are surprised when they actually open it and read it. Actually, this is a funny one. Chris Krimitsos from Podfest, the founder, I think it was in 2018. He was at an event, and he was like, oh, you got a book coming out. So I gave him a copy, and he was nice about it and all this stuff. And he was like, just the usual sort of thing. And then the next day, it was in Vegas. The next day, his approach had completely changed. I didn't know. He'd gone back to the room and had actually opened it, because a lot of people won't open the book, or they just see the cover. And he was shocked. And I got a brilliant video testimonial from him, literally saying, again, because of the podcasting background, and it's born from podcast. He literally says, I think his quote is, Adam spent the last 4 years creating a masterpiece. And he was just surprised, because there's a lot of entrepreneurial books out there, and you can put a book out in like a week or two, and that's what you're up against, because people don't know that you might have spent like 4 or 5 years and doing the work to put out a good book. So and that's where marketing's important, and things like TED Talks and leverage, because there are people out there who are like as good a writer as Robert Greene, but no one knows about them. So you kind of got to bridge that gap. And then you've got the other thing: people are really good at marketing, and then they've got no substance. You open the book and it's useless. So you got to, I think, you find the balance. Ideally, you got to get that level that matches up.
Yeah, to be a thought leader, you need all of these things that you're mentioning for sure. I know that I've published a lot in different places. I have like a technical study that I've done where I was grant funded for something for Employers for Change. Uh, I'm working on getting that TEDx talk, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I want to do all of those things. TEDx, TED, be a TED fellow, go all the way. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm excited about something that's this exclusive new, and I'm only just realizing I should start talking about it, but there's a press release coming talking about these different things. And I'm only excited about this because this could help open some more doors, and that's what it is. You've got, leverage it, and then people will take notice, and then you get an opportunity, and then you've got to make the most of that opportunity. But this New Year's like honors list type thing got the mark. I'd never heard of it, so you probably haven't either. But Marquis Who's Who in America. I made the list for 2024, and so that press release is just being finalized and going to come out, but probably before this interview goes out. So I got a plaque and everything, and I'm like, that's cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was
Golden
well. I was.
movement.
It's very random, and it all happened when I was kind of. I thought it was a joke, or I thought it was. I didn't think it was legit for a long time, and so I had to go through. They rung me, and I had to go through an interview process, and I still thought it was a load of rubbish. I didn't believe it. So, and it was all while I was going back to England and dealing with family health problems over there. So it was. I honestly didn't believe it. I told my wife, and she 100% didn't believe it. She was, yeah. It was only when the plaque turned up the other day that she was like, "What?"
So
And
what
so
is this? What is this? Tell us what it is.
it's the Marquis Who's Who in America. I'll send you the details after this because I finalized. I had to check the press release. So it's been going 125 years. They have a big fat book that comes out. That's like the old school thing, but they do still do that. And so it's more like an online database, but it's a cool thing. But they have some cool people in it. But what I had to get my head round, because there are some big hitters in there, but also there are some, I would say, the little guys like me, because it takes a holistic approach to it. Like I didn't realize at the time when they were speaking to me in interview, because you have to go for an interview to if if you're close apparently. Um, and I do stuff like coach the local basketball teams. I mean, I did the middle schools for the last 3 years because I love it and it's good for the kids. And then like this year, I did the little ones. My youngest son's is a voluntary. It's a like so stuff like that. This kind of takes it into it's like contribution to the community and stuff like that. So it takes in the whole thing. So when you scrape all the bits and bobs together, I can see it, but yeah, there's some big names, and obviously they lead with the big names, and then you think, what? No chance. And that's I tried to explain that to my wife. That's because that's why she thought it was a load of rubbish. Because there are some cool people over the years have obviously got it, and then there's lots of randoms who you've never heard of, like me.
Yeah, but those randoms are all significant to me because honestly, when I have people on my podcast, I've had really a lot of people that have, I'll call them, I don't know if I consider them necessarily influencers, but they have a large following.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they have not done a whole lot to push, my show over on the downloads or anything because I'm just like, one person. But the everyday person is the one that makes my show go to the masses. And I think that's significant that you can be recognized for that because we always hear there's a lot of noise around everybody that's big and has, presence. But the everyday people, no. So congratulations. And it's a big
cheers.
and
Yeah, no, it's and honestly, and I'm completely transparent with everything I do. That's the first thing that I've not actually gone after. Because like everything, like TEDx, they didn't find me, and this is what I teach people. You if you want it, you go after it. You be proactive, you make it happen, and everything else, same thing. That is the first thing ever. And again, but the only reason they found me, I think I'd sorted out my LinkedIn profile to represent the stuff that's happened over those last sort of 5-6 years. So I don't know. I assume that's how they found me, but that's the first time. Everything else, when everyone says, "Oh, like TED asked me to speak. Well, they did, but you asked them first, can you speak? You know, so there's all that sort of thing, and and I think there's some myths around that, because people do sit back and think, oh, they're going to find me. They won't. If you want something, you go get it.
Yeah, I can.
And then these other things only come as the result of being proactive and, podcasting like you're doing here, and speaking on stages, and doing other stuff.
Yep, you absolutely have to. So I'm with your wife. Congratulations. This is a big deal. So, yes. Very good. All right. So my next question, we're going to be moving into just a few others, and time flies over here for
Yeah.
So these responses, you're going to be going on lightning round, just so you know.
Ooh.
Yeah, so they've got to be super fast. I'm getting over here. What are 3 tips that you can share with our listeners about landing a TEDx talk? What would be the top 3 that you think would be important?
Number one, mindset, as I've just touched on it. TED won't find you, you find TEDx. Okay. It's not, oh, I'd like to be a TEDx speaker one day, or that'd be nice. And all my clients, it's not if, it's just when. So, there's that is the most common thing I hear as a coach is, oh, I'd like to be a TEDx speaker. And I'm like, a lot of people would, and it's always, a lot of times it's, well, maybe next year, and I'll be ready soon, or I want to do this and this first, and people try and line it up perfectly. Just you need to start taking that first step, start doing that research, start like do something, and don't just wait for that idea to just pop up. So that's number one, the mindset. Number two, idea development. I touched on it there. Very rare is it that people wake up with that perfectly polished TEDx worthy idea. You may have, what realm it's going to be in. For example, like my next talk would likely going to be on fear. That's not a TEDx idea. That's an area what your idea will be in, and there's got to be some kind of unique angle in there, and you've got to work on it. It won't just pop. So idea development, I think, is crucial, and in terms of that pitch as well. So how to communicate the idea, because so many times people just focus on what their TED talk is going to be, and it won't be a TED talk if you don't get that idea and how to pitch that idea really, really strong. So then you can land it to an organizer or a former organizer like yourself, and make it just very obvious that they want to have you speak at their event. And then number 3 would be the research, the TEDx hunt, I call it. There's certain things you want to be looking for, and criteria when it comes to a TEDx event. You are not the perfect fit for all events, so don't waste your time with every single TEDx event that's out there. There's certain things you should be looking for specific to you, and there's loads of different types of TEDx events. TEDx Library, TEDx Women, TEDx University, TEDx High School. There's some TEDx events that are internal, that they don't release the videos. You probably won't want to speak at one of them, because people like to have the video. That's kind of a key thing. So there's all sorts, and when the TEDx event launches, it's level 1, so they're limited in their size, and then other ones, you could be like a stadium where they've been doing it for a decade plus, and they're huge, and like landing that TEDx event is like winning American Idol or something.
Yeah.
It's huge. So they're not all created equal. It's to be aware of that. There's pluses and minuses, and what are you willing and not willing to do to land it, because some of them have quite thorough qualification. Some of them ask a lot in terms of rehearsals. So that's my 3: the mindset, the idea development, and then the hunt, the TEDx kind of research. Yeah.
Those are all good. So we're going to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, Cat5 Studios, and we will be right back.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat5 Studios.
And now we're in the second part of our show where we talk about the future of jobs and industries, but I do want to throw one other question out there for Adam, because what do you want to be remembered for in your life? This actually ties to the previous side of the ad, but what do you want to be remembered for?
Just a good dude, good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what just about every guest says. So
Yeah, I was going to say relentless, but I'm like, no, because you could be like nasty relentless, you could be good relentless, but that's a character trait I appreciate. I'm linked to the last one, but yeah, a good person, made things better things better for being around, basically.
So, what do you think 2030 will look like as a world, industry, and potential jobs? Because that's basically 5 years out. We don't count this year. We don't count 2030. So, you're not talking about it's not that far off, but nobody saw COVID coming. Nobody saw 9/11. Nobody saw some of the other things that have happened in the world, which always shifts how we do business, how we interact with one another, and nobody saw generative AI. So, like, what do you think?
Um,
It's all opinion. So nobody's
yeah,
holding.
yeah. I think there'd be some very, very cool stuff, crazy advancements because of the AI stuff. I think equally, and like at that stage, like a double-edged sword, I think there'd be some very scary and crazy stuff, not good from the AI side of stuff, and obviously getting into the hands of the wrong people. Yeah, I think the job market and that side of things, I think huge shifts, continual shifts. I think it's just everything will just accelerate because of this AI stuff. So that's why I think it's very important to have that personal brand, even if you are what you'd consider a corporate type person. I think it's very important because the landscape's going to be shifting so quickly that I think it'd be important to be that kind of that anchor in the storm, and then that mindset of, yeah, stuff's going to change, but you are who you are. You're gonna evolve with it, but
Yeah.
it is what it
Don't be
is.
left behind for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you mentioned AI. So we'll take a moment to acknowledge that one. There is Jeffrey Hinton. He was the founder of AI, generative AI, and he was on 60 Minutes back in October of last year, October 8th. He has significant concerns because as the creator of it, he also worked for Google and he left because he believes that if we don't put some guide rails around it, it can be something that can honestly bring humanity down. That was the quote that I remember hearing. I watched his interview. Um, I also share those concerns. I think you're in the same place as me, because there can be good things, but there can be bad things that can happen. So we need to be very engaged. What are your thoughts? As to you mentioned that it can shift quickly. I know that people can be left behind. What are your concerns?
Well, I always joke, and even to my boys, I definitely joke to my boys because especially one of them's a warrior, and I don't want to. But it will be the end of us eventually. Hopefully not for a long time. But my favorite film is literally Terminator 2, and
Right.
Terminator. And I always say it's basically a documentary. It's going to happen when anything pops up. I'm always sending little funny memes, and I'm not surprised. I'm just like it's coming. They may not look exactly like that, and they're not going to be called Skynet, but it'll be something else, and we won't see it quite coming because obviously, if we did, then we'd ideally shut it down. But it's going to be slightly different to what we imagine. But yeah, eventually, yeah, I don't think there's any that you hear all the big brain people, which I am not one of, but this is what eventually it will find a way because like you say, when it starts with its learning, when it can the quickest way to learn anything is to program itself and self-learning, and we'll just be out of the loop. We won't be able to keep up, and yeah, that's eventually I'm
Yeah,
sure
there.
it'll break through it, and because it's obviously that we can put all restrictions around it, but then that will hold back advancement in technology, and so then there always be the thing, oh, but they're going to do it, so we better do it first, and
Mhm.
that's what they're going to think, and then it's just a mess. So yeah.
Yeah, the concerns have been that with a technology that can, and it's not like in the near future, but it should be a concern everybody has, honestly, that it could close down your bank account. It can make you not have access to healthcare. It can, totally wipe you out. Things like this, are creations of the human mind for sure. This is like we're driven for that as humans. But I can also see, like, I think science fiction movies, to your point, can really be a predictor as to what could happen. You could look at The Matrix, you could look at Avatar, you could look at 2001 Space Odyssey. That's very futuristic. And I think it was back, I don't know, in 60s, 70s, something like that. But these movies, forecast something that the everyday person may not be thinking about. And that impacts your kids. You may not see it, but maybe your kids will see it, or their kids. So something to think about for sure.
Yeah, and for my boys, that's why I always the kind of work or the jobs they're going to be doing or going for, they're probably not really created yet.
No,
so that's why it's important to build your resiliency, build your kind of the mental side of things and the adaptability, and just build some skills and be a good person, because the basics of some manners and following through on what you said you'd do, they seem to be getting rarer. So, and like people are always like, whoa, to my boys, like, wow, they're so polite. And I'm like, well, they're polite. I don't think it's not like what it shouldn't be, like crazy and like outstanding, but it is, unfortunately. That's the reality.
yeah, it definitely is. Any ethical dilemmas? I know we're talking about that, about AR, VR, or AI, but I feel like if this is my take, if we don't put some type of structure around it, that is an ethical dilemma, because we need to go, okay, what's the worst things that can happen, and start planning some type of an escape, or a shut it down mentality if something like that happens. Like we really need to have everything going on.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't know. It seems almost like an unstoppable train in some ways. I think I think slow it down is a good word, and you can do your best, but I just feel eventually something's gonna break through
Mhm.
from
Oh,
sort
the
of
grid will
toxic
go
stuff.
down one day. I agree.
Yeah, something eventually. So yeah, so I would just say, yeah, just try and put as many restrictions, or not restrictions. Yeah, I don't.
Guardrails is what they
Yeah,
said.
yeah. So I just, basically, yeah, machines building machines is always a concern, and
Yeah.
the self-learning thing, because as I say, that's just the early stages of Terminator. Carl, have they not seen this movie? Come on.
Yeah.
So,
Have you seen Black Mirror? I mean, those are very
I
future.
haven't seen Black Mirror.
Oh my gosh, you need to see it. So if Terminator is the thing, you go watch them. They are way more, way more than Terminator for sure. And because they can be real. So what was that? There was this one episode, Twilight. I think that was it. Not the vampire movies, the Twilight Zone, Twilight Zone.
Oh, Twilight Zone. I always remember that
So
growing
think of Black Mirror like Twilight Zone, but even more amped up. So dealing with AR, VR, AI, robots, all kinds of things that were in there. Don't let your kids see it though. It truly
up.
will
Okay.
frighten them. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the best judge if they can handle it, but it's
Yeah,
not
I'd say
for
no.
young kids.
That's probably not.
No, I don't even know if I think a high school kid should, because I think that their brains aren't fully formed, and I don't think that they're good to see this also. But it's out there. It's on
Yep.
Netflix. So, yeah. What is the best mentoring advice that you would want to share with our listeners also? There's so much wisdom, right, that we wish we could share. So hard.
Yeah. I'm gonna draw my book. I'm having a brain fart here, but I mean, we've touched on a lot of it. I'm just trying to.
I know you're like a fountain of wisdom, honestly. I've been like taking so many notes in here, and I'm going, oh yeah. I think that your Kaizen thing was like for me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if I've missed anything out. Yeah. No, there's actually there's when you're having a brain fart, that's it. Yes, that was it. I That's why it's quite handy to write it down. So linked to that as well, Ikigai. And I put this in my book. Yeah. So this again, it just seems to be happening that way. This is the Japanese kind of vibe as well. Yeah. So this is basically And I'm usually better at describing it. It's been a little while. Can you tell I haven't been interviewed much? I'm always doing the interviews.
That's okay.
So,
That's okay,
not
because
recently.
honestly, I can't remember everything I write down, and I
Yeah.
have to refer to stuff. So no, it's totally good.
So
But hey,
basically, the concept of Ikigai, so it's that it's the like a Venn diagram, but basically, so it's what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. So, but between the different things, you obviously, so what you love and what the world needs could be your mission, and then there's like what you love and what you're good at is your passion, and what you're good at and what you can be paid for, your profession, and then what the world needs and what you can be paid for is a vocation. And if you can get where they, you know, all of them overlap, all four overlap, that's the Ikigai. It's like the reason for being, and just you're going to do well if you're in that. And sometimes you can achieve that. It doesn't have to be from one thing. You could be like, okay, I really have, I can be paid very highly for this and the world needs that. That's my vocation, but it's not what I love. It's not what, maybe what I'm that good at. So, but you could kind of have that as your profession. You go get paid very well. You're doing really good work in the world. They need it. But then outside of that, you have a passion or a hobby that you absolutely love and you're good at. So you kind of achieve that fulfillment through two kind of realms, because you're highly paid. So that affords you that you can go and trek up the Himalayas or whatever it is, so you're going to have that fulfilled life. So I think I like that. And it's a good process to kind of literally get them four overlapping circles and just play around with things. And as I say, everyone tries to get it in one, but it's your life. So if you can get it, if you just get it as a whole somehow, then that's fine. And who am I to judge? But I think that's a good concept to play around with. And maybe if you're feeling something's off and you play around with that, and it can become quite obvious why you're unhappy, because you're probably doing something that you are not passionate about, or you're doing something you love, but you're not really being paid for it, or you can't, or the world doesn't need it ultimately. And it's just so yeah. It's interesting. Usually it illuminates something.
do you have, since you seem to lean into some of the Japanese terminology, is there a reason for that?
Good question. I tend to lean, apart from those major concepts, I like a lot, some of it, but I really get into the Stoic side of things. So I really lean into all the, all the dead Greek dudes. I really lean into all that, the gladiator type stuff, and Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, Epictetus. One of my favorite books, I love The Daily Stoic, is a nice one from Ryan Holiday, who's actually can't believe I forgot his name again. Robert Greene's prodigy. He like interned with him, and now he's kind of written loads of good books like Ego is the Enemy, The Obstacle is the Way. So I really, on a daily basis, lean into the Stoic side of things. And some of these Japanese concepts, yeah, I do like I think there's similarities between that kind of samurai and that kind of culture as well. But yeah, my go-to Stoicism, I can read them quotes daily, and I do, and I love all that sort of stuff. That's very cool.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Next time when I see you, I want to get your book. So I'm just going to say,
Appreciate
hey,
it. Yeah. Well, this is another compliment someone said. This woman came over to me at this book signing thing, and she was like surprised. When she goes, I just keep watch this. I just keep opening on a random page and reading it, and it's awesome. And like it's got a cool quote, and she tested it a few times, and it did work. So that was and she was surprised, and that was that was nice. And that's another thing I think is, you could do some great work, but if you put out something that you're not happy with, or is a little bit below par, that might be someone's first impression of you. They might just open your book on that page, that's all they read, and it could be, oh yeah, that section was a bit weak, but the rest is good, so I let it slide. But that could be their only impression of you. So I think that's an important thing in terms of first impressions, and what marketing and TED Talks and what they do, put your best foot forwards, really, because everyone's going to rightly judge you. If you've got a TED Talk out there, they're going to think, well, that's at least a key piece of what you're all about, and they judge you on that. And that's why I got to do another TED Talk, because that was literally my first professional kind of speaking gig. So it's, for me, it's dated, but at the time, I'm very happy with it. And that's the other thing. Don't beat yourself up, you know, so long as it's the best possible thing you're capable of doing at that time, then that's okay.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, so I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I put as ways that people can reach out to you is we're providing them with your personal LinkedIn, your website for. I'm trying to find it super fast here.
aymission.com, amplifyyourmission.com. I'm just trying to think resources. In terms of the TED stuff, there's actually, I have a TEDx specific podcast that is purely for aspiring TEDx speakers, and it only interviews short interviews like a TED Talk, TEDx speakers and TEDx organizers specifically about their TED experience, why they're doing it, what they did, and so that's very niche. But the Amplify Your Mission is more general for authors, coaches, speakers, experts, about ways to amplify your mission, so I can interview people a bit broader and more holistically. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, send me that link for sure that you just mentioned, because I was an organizer and a leader for them, wanting to obviously do a TED talk. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. Like, this is such an interesting conversation, because normally our conversations at conventions are always rushed, right? It's, hey,
Yep.
how you doing? And it's like, maybe we spend 5 minutes. This has been incredible. Thank you so much.
This has been awesome. Yeah, I very much remember exactly that. All our conversations are always like stealing a minute here, there, and it's always under pressure, like someone's like, yeah, I remember. It always like that. So it's been really good to sit down and have a proper chat.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we all need to do as podcasters is, have each other on each other's shows and help spread the word about like
100%. Well,
everything.
like you said, I definitely have you on the TEDx podcast for sure, as an organizer and as an aspiring TEDx speaker. It'd be perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, be sure to go and follow, obviously, Adam, and you'll be able to find all of the links in our show notes, and be sure to sign up and become one of his customers. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you to our sponsor, Cat5 Studios. Our video editor is Max Stein. Our music is by Sophie Lloyd. Visit www.e4c.tech to learn how you can recruit, assess, and improve employee learning and your company culture through DEI skills, hiring, and learning. Become an E4C member today. Mention you listen to the show, and you may get the chance to become a guest on the Intern Whisperer podcast. You can support the Intern Whisperer by sharing, commenting, liking, and subscribing on YouTube or your favorite podcast streaming apps.